Hello and welcome back to Success is Never Accidental, the show where we get to understand the many factors that contribute to success, and I get to interview some highly successful people. My guest today, Janine Jakob, specialises in helping organisations foster a culture of performance and well-being, and she champions happiness in organisations. Janine is from Germany originally, and she's been working in China for several years. She established her consulting firm in Shanghai in 2018 and recently launched a new venture between China and Europe. She has worked across multiple cultures, including France, USA, Finland, and China, and she's fluent in several languages. It's my great pleasure to welcome Janine Jakob. Hi, Janine, and thank you so much for joining me on Success is Never Accidental.
Happy to be here, Lynn. Thank you so much for having me. Hey, guys.
And you are just back from a holiday in Germany, and now you're back in Shanghai.
Well, as an entrepreneur, we don't do holidays. We love our work, so we work most of the time, but it is true, I work less than usual.
That's fabulous. So, Janine, I know everybody. You heard me telling people in the introduction about your journey and how multicultural and bilingual you are. So, tell us, how did you come to start up a consultancy business in China?
You know, Lynn, this was never the plan. It just happened. And when you and I met for the first time at the conference by our coach JD Fox in Anaheim, this was about 6 years ago, 6.5 years. I was still working for HP Germany in the IT basically. And I was just a foreign exchange student in China. So I was supposed to go back to my corporate job in full-time after that. And these 2 semesters in China, living with the local family, being at a French grande école, a very good business school, and I love to go outside of my comfort zone. They all kind of like all these experiences that I took on, and even like attending that conference, like during my exam phase on the other side of China, which was like California, where we met, made me grow. And then I just said yes, yes, yes to all the opportunities, founded a networking event, founded a happiness association, bridged foreigners, Chinese, and students and business professionals while still studying and working at the same time. And that's actually when it clicked. And I found my purpose in life. So basically at the end of these 2 semesters abroad in Suzhou, China, when I was supposed to go back and work in corporate HP in full-time, I said, you know what? My gut feeling actually says that I cannot go back to my former life. And I loved it. I loved the company, but I feel like I have to fulfill a purpose here. I feel like I can do something impactful, meaningful. And people like me exist a lot in the US and Germany and the West, but here I can really like make something work. And that's how I started my own company, quit my job, and stayed in China.
That's just amazing. And you know what? You make me dizzy listening to you, Janine, because you're obviously someone who just grasps opportunities. You're fearless and you just get on with it. But you said it helped you to find your purpose in life. How would you define your purpose now? What is it that you're so passionate about?
I'm very passionate about making a global impact in this world. I want everybody to live a happy life, and if you want, a successful life. So this is what everything is about, because everybody can be happy. And I think a lot of people also have the chance to be successful in their life. And of course, there's different definitions for it. So I'm like the bridge, I'm like the enabler. I bring happiness and peak performance to corporates, to universities, to startups. I help people unlock their full potential and just guide them on the right path and unlock whatever is needed so that they can actually live a happy and successful life.
So that is such an happy and successful. There's really no point in being successful if we don't feel fulfilled. And you and I both love Tony Robbins, but Tony says that you have to define success, and it's not all about achievement, it's about fulfillment. And you're clearly very fulfilled in what you do, and you're trying to help other people feel fulfilled. So what do you
Yes.
think are some of the key ingredients to a successful and fulfilled life?
To be honest, the reason why I started my consulting company was I wanted a happiness consultancy. I wanted to bring happiness into workplaces. My cat is also saying hi now.
And I remember you and I having a conversation a while back, and happiness was very much your focus at that particular time, but you've shifted a little now.
Yeah, the thing was, although I had studied about what is the definition for Chinese people, what happiness means, how they see it in corporate or in workplaces, how would Chinese bosses actually implement that in workplace versus what I had studied mainly like the US, the West, and there's differences. But as also our coach JT Fox says, happiness and well-being doesn't really sell that much. Although this may have shifted a little bit after COVID when it comes to mental fitness, which is a part that is growing a lot in my company. But if you tell them, hey, I help you increase your sales by 20%, I make you like more successful, you perform higher, you increase productivity and profit and so on. That just sounds sexier, right? It is selling. But at the end, if you go back to the core, everybody wants to be successful. And they think that happiness comes later, maybe 30 years from now. And your grandparents may tell you, Lynn, of course, my little girl, I want you to be happy. But first, you have to be successful. Maybe become the CEO of a big corporation, and then in the future, you will be happy. But the science of happiness, coming from neuroscience, positive psychology, and so on, actually says it's the contrary. So first, when you are happy right here, right now, then you have better chances to become even successful. And some of the key components is practice gratitude, practice compassion. Like simple things, you don't even need to pay money for that. It's very simple. Practice self-love. I mean, nobody teaches us that at university. At least they didn't teach me this back in Germany or in the US or at the French business school where I studied. And when I took this one course about the science of happiness at Munich Business School during my master's, things clicked for me. And I was like, everybody has to know about it. It's so basic, but it's a game changer. And the craziest is that 50% of your happiness might come from your genes, whether your parents are happy or not, for example, and your upbringing. But 40% of your happiness are the activities and the relationships. That's why I love spending time with you, learning from you, surrounding myself with amazing people like Lynn. And only 10% is actually money, 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 the income, whereas everybody thinks it's all about money.
So I love you, Janine. Some very, very interesting bits there. Practicing gratitude. And all that needs is at the end of every day that we just take a moment or two to think, what were the highlights of the day? It could have been just an interchange with somebody while you were out for a walk, and I always say, how did I add value to people today? And it can be little gestures, but they all accumulate to both make us feel better, but we don't know how our intervention left somebody else. So again, if we can always practice leaving people better than we find them. I love that practice compassion. I always say practice kindness as well. I've got a few posters just about the benefits of being kind to each other. But also that self-love that you brought out, Janine, being kind to ourselves. Where did I do good today? Where did I make a difference? So it's all about focus, really, isn't it? We get more of what we focus on. And if we choose to focus on the good things in life and not keep focus on what we didn't get done, or maybe a conversation or an interaction that didn't go so well, those are only opportunities for learning, aren't they? And really, we just need to keep our focus more on the things that are fulfilling and allow us to be happier. So tell us a little bit about, because you're one of your core goals is to help people reach their full potential. So tell us about the new venture that you've created about full potential partnerships.
Well, it's basically a mixture out of organizational behavior consulting. Then we have a bunch of different trainings from soft skills, which are fully underestimated, actually. A lot of people here in China focus on the hard skills, but there's communication, leadership styles, intercultural communication, for example, relationship building, how to create self-awareness, those kind of topics. And then we have a bunch of different coaches from executive life, business, relationship coaches, psychotherapists, everybody who really takes care of you as a person. And I love to work with leaders and entrepreneurs because first, I feel like if I can help you unlock your full potential, and everybody is full of potential. It just takes somebody like you and me to help them to drag it out of them, unlock them a little bit, and then they can also like really unlock the full potential from their team so that they can get the most out of the mission that they are basically on. And I'm just so passionate about it because it is fulfilling, because at the end of the day, I'm always like planting seeds. So whatever my team and we do, there might be this one thing that your listeners are listening to today. Maybe just one thing, but it clicks inside them. It inspired them. It gave them the motivation. Yes, I want to take action, or I want to tell my friend about it. And then they start to make a little tiny change in their own life. And maybe they tell their family, their friends about it, and they will spread it like the butterfly or domino effect. But leaders and entrepreneurs, they also have teams. They're leading whole organizations. So instead of just making a difference in their own lives and in their family and their friend circle, they now have their own team, the whole organization where they start to make an impact, right? I'm driven by global positive impact, but they're also interacting with people outside of the organization, do a business in an ethical way, for example, or like giving value back to maybe poorer communities or to children in need or whatever it is. So it's basically a global impact. And it all started with Lynne and Janine having a podcast and planting a seed.
And that is so critical. And I think the same way. If somebody takes away one idea, one tiny little, as you say, seed, and implements it, then you and I have done our job. And I was listening, you know, Ethan Cassiotis, he's one of our colleagues in the JT world, and he has 200 podcasts and they are all amazing. But I listened to him interview someone on Saturday while I was cooking. And the gem I got from that was, it used to be the gold standard was treat people like you want to be treated. But now there's a platinum standard, which is treat people like they want to be treated. And just that one distinction is so powerful. And I teach that all the time. I talk about you can only influence people in their model of the world, not in your model of the world. But I thought that was amazing. But there was an example of a gem that I passed on today, but I will pass on in my leadership coaching, because planting seeds is what we do, and then they germinate and people share them. I want to go back to a word that you used a moment ago, motivation. You have a special way of helping people stay motivated. Tell us about your Monday motivation.
Thank you so much for asking and bringing this up. We have just launched our Telegram group now because we were so focused in China. We have our 5-year anniversary coming up in 2 weeks. And you know, when I started my business in China, I was thinking like, I don't mind getting up early. I'm an early bird. I like to be disciplined. I have my habits. And I thought other people, other entrepreneurs, for example, they could sleep in, but they don't get so much done as we do, or they make excuses. So the whole idea was that maybe I offer a morning program. I motivate people to join me in the early morning, and I'm basically reprogramming them to get up early, integrate some new habits, do some self-motivation, self-development. And this is what Monday morning motivation is all about. So every Monday morning at 7 a.m. China time, which for you, UK time would be, depending on the time, I think like midnight or so. Yes. And we also have recordings that are accessible for free, but I just want to give people a reason. Don't make excuses. This is my motto. Get up early, get done, and don't make excuses, right? It takes like you're practicing your discipline and you're surrounded by like-minded people. Remember, 40% of your happiness is relationship and activities. And we're basically covering those in our like 20-minute webinars. And then we have like 8 WeChat groups. We have a LinkedIn group, now Telegram. We post some motivation, some inspiration, just for people to be surrounded by a lot of like positive vibes, okay? And I literally had people reaching out to me. They don't like my posts. They might never tell me this, but I suddenly met them even in a nightclub or so, and like even men, and they would tell me, Janine, you know what? During the Shanghai lockdown, when you were even COVID positive and your cats nearly got killed and you barely had any food, but you continued your motivation, you continued with your community, and other people were in depression or other states and had challenges, but that community just helped us, helped me as well. And to be honest, also when I hear these stories from other people, it gives us as a team from MMM a lot of courage again to continue, because sometimes we have our lows too, but again, it is meaningful to see how through something so simple, we make an impact in people's lives all around the world. And I just hope that even more people from outside of China can join, and English is the main language.
And tell people how they can access that. Where can they find this show?
Yeah, I think it's publicly available now on Telegram, Monday Morning Motivation. And then I have a website inspired by Oprah. I call it www.thegrowthzone.global. And all of our webinars are on there, and it's freely accessible to join us on Zoom on Mondays, as I said. And we have this LinkedIn group. Yeah, if you like it, invite your friends and contribute as well. Why not? Sharing is caring.
We'll put it in the link. We'll put it in the link. And thank you so much for if you like doing all that free stuff, because that's what we do, isn't it? We give our time, we add value wherever we can, so that other people can benefit. Now, you mentioned teams earlier. Why is looking after the well-being of our team so important?
Yeah.
Why do we all need teams to function?
Yeah. I mean, you cannot grow your company if it's just me, myself, and I, right? You need a team. You need people who are different from you, who bring in the strengths that might be your weaknesses. It's like yin and yang, as we say in China, synergies. So that's why you need team. You need diversity. And yeah, this is what it is all about. And then if we look at big cities like Shanghai, the turnover is extremely high. Then if you look at industries like hospitality, it is even higher in F&B hospitality compared to other regions, other industries. So just motivating people extrinsically through, hey, I give you more salary, does not fully work anymore. Also with the different generations. So leaders have to learn how to grow the team, but more important is how to keep the team members and how to hire the right employees. So that's why this is something that I'm focused on working on with people. Because when we are surrounded by the right people, remember, 40% of your happiness is a relationship. So we also want to make sure that we are surrounded throughout the long workday by the right people. When we have fun at workplace, doing the work is even easier, and also people will stay longer in their jobs and will stay loyal to the company, and they might be more like there's positive outcomes like higher creativity, maybe increase in emotional intelligence or whatever it is. So no matter what, if you take care of your team, of course, of your clients too, but they will also start to take care of you. So that's why I got inspired by the HP company culture, an American company culture, not typical German, although I'm German. And I copied a lot from it in my own startup company culture. And most of my employees have stayed for a very long time. Or even like after they have left, we might still work on projects or stay connected or stay friends because I want to take care of them because it's a win-win situation. So this goes back to values, to your leadership style. Yeah, I'm a people person. So at the end, your success is related to the resources. And with resources, I definitely also mean your people. So everybody, please take care of your people. And that's why in my company, the number one is my people. It's not clients come first, like at Alibaba or other companies. No, my employees come first because you take your problems from home in the workplace. And it's okay. My colleague's going through a breakup. Well, then we first like talk about it and hopefully I can help her somehow to get over it. But if she's not doing well, then also like her work's going to be influenced. So that's why first I want to take care of my people. And as I said, at the end, they will take care of my clients, of my business, us growing together. So it's a win-win-win situation for everybody.
So I always say, Janine, culture is really how your people experience the organization. And what you're saying there is they experience it through an understanding and hopefully an alignment with the values of the organization. The leadership style is so incredibly important. And what you're saying is for happy employees, the leadership style needs to be employee focused as well as outcome focused and client focused.
Yes.
How do you get the balance between evaluating how well the company is doing in terms of goals and achievements and outcomes with that sense of minding, which is a good Irish word, minding your employee base? How do you balance there?
There's like for the bigger corporations, what I would definitely suggest you is one of my coaches, Csaba Tóth, he founded a company called ICQ Global. Some of you might know the DISC, the global DISC methodology, but he actually developed, he calls it a growth zone 2.0, where he basically measures three components. Like not just the motivation of the team, but one that many people underestimate is also psychological safety. And then, I'm sorry, I just forgot the third one. But basically, if you cannot measure something, you don't know where you at. You don't know what to change or not. Like JT says, you always need to know your numbers. And it's the same, like you can learn to measure even the happiness, well-being, employee engagement, or the psychological safety or motivation of your employees. And he created a beautiful tool. And then like, there's a lot of different like methodologies out there. And just like asking for feedback is one other very powerful tool. However, being in China or working with Japanese, Koreans, a lot of Asians, if I now ask you, Lynn, give me your feedback, are you happy or how happy are you my company? They're all going to say, yes, I'm super happy here. And suddenly after like Chinese New Year, they got their bonus, they might leave the company and you haven't expected it. So different cultures would give feedback and like use these methodologies and trainings differently, but you need to have something to help you measure, to have a status quo to compare and then come up with different results and solutions. I hope that answered your question.
And a very simple way that I used to do that is just scaling. So I'll say to teams, okay, when we evaluate how we're doing in this team, in this workplace, on a scale of 5 to 10, how effective, and I always start at 5, because if you go below 5, there's very little hope. So I always go like, on a scale of 5 to 10, how effective is the communication within the team? On a scale of 5 to 10, how valued do you feel as an employee? Yeah. Because then that makes people really think, well, and then if they're at a 7, you say, great. And what needs to happen for it to get to 8? So you make it manageable. But as you say, you have to at first take some kind of reading on where are we? What's the temperature? How are we doing here? And then simple questions, well, like what needs to happen to get it up a notch? What needs to happen to get from 8 to 9? And people can always think that through. And then, you know, the next time we go back, I was going, well, okay, how are we doing? Like I had a fabulous workshop just last week, and it was amazing all the things that the team had managed to achieve without their management. And then we brought management in for the afternoon session, and we shared how much management had bought into. And the reason that they bought into it was because they were enabled to listen to what the team really needed. So listening to understand is a huge skill, isn't it, Janine? And that's what you've been talking about. Really listen to understand the needs of your team, listen to understand the culture within which you're working, adapt so that you're speaking the same language, not just the same, you know, fluency language or the same actual language, but you're speaking the same psychological, emotional language as the people you're working with. Janine, I don't even know if I should ask you this question, but I'm thinking, looking back now, you've achieved so much and you're still very young. But if there was one piece of advice that you would give your younger self, what would it have been?
Oh, that's a good one. First of all, thanks for sharing also how you do this. I really like that. Right now, I have two thoughts. The first one is, I think three. There's more coming up now. It's only recently I start to practice more to listen to my intuition. And if you study some of the smartest minds in this world, from Albert Einstein to Tesla, to many other ones, they all, Steve Jobs, they all kind of like meditated and got lots of different techniques to listen to their intuition, and they got a lot of like creative ideas. So number one, start listening to your intuition earlier, instead of always being like rational, although it also sometimes makes sense, right? But the first, actually the first thought I had was when I started my own company, I was still an HP employee for already nearly 7 years back then. And because I did my double master's degree in full time, I didn't have any savings. I even took a bank loan so I could do and attend a private business school in Munich and a French one in China. So when I started my startup and I was like 25 or so, I had no savings. And the first summer I had in Shanghai, and I don't come from a rich family, and then I didn't have savings, and the beginning was tough, but it started to work out. So everything that made me revenues in the first month, and then I got my first office, my first 2 interns. Suddenly, the first summer in China, in Shanghai, nothing worked anymore. This when I had my first burnout. I had not many savings left over. And at one point I didn't know how, like, where's the food going to come from next week? Well, how am I going to pay the rent next month? And Shanghai is not so cheap either. So this learning is, I think if I start another startup, and actually I have just started to work on another startup since 2 months now, have at least like a buffer on the side. Either you still have a job or you have at least like 2, 3, 4 months of buffer time so that you know, okay, where the food's gonna come from and how to pay your apartment. Because your decision making will be short term because, hey, I need food, I need water, I need shelter. Like the psychological needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? If you cannot even cover the basics, your decision making, your strategy in your company, everything will be influenced. And that is something that I would do differently. Have like a financial buffer, or maybe parents or partners, or maybe a boyfriend or girlfriend, husband who can somehow support you. And number three, I mean, I would definitely focus more on the language. I speak Chinese, medium. But if I would have been fluent in that language, my business could have been on a different level. I would be working with even more companies, local companies here, to make an impact. So really integrate, learn the language, like know lots of different languages, because language, culture, it's a door opener. And yeah, and then you know what, last but not least, this is number 4 now, self-love.
Yeah.
So we're very tough on ourselves, and especially we women. I grew up in IT. I was the only woman. I was one of the youngest account managers at HP Germany, which is normally a senior role. And then the only woman at that time when I started. So I was born, basically grew up in a male-driven environment, and I'm so grateful for it. But I feel like that we women are even tougher on ourselves, and practicing self-love. I mean, nobody told you this, how important it is.
Janine, you are one of the most courageous, innovative, and successful people I've ever met. And just spending time in your company makes me happy. Thank you
Lynne.
so much for joining us today and sharing all of those experiences and wisdom and insights. And we'll leave it on that note. All of us, women and men, we just all need to practice self-love and just all be a bit kinder to ourselves. So what a bundle of energy is Janine Jakob. So many thoughts and ideas there. But let's try and summarize them. Janine found her purpose during an exchange visit to China. So instead of coming back to her permanent job in Germany, she took a massive leap of faith and allowed herself to go in a completely different direction because she was clear on her purpose. So her goal is to help people unlock their full potential, to have not just a successful, but a happy and fulfilled life. She's committed to helping clients and others find happiness now by practicing gratitude, by practicing compassion, by practicing self-love. In other words, happiness is not something that we get to whenever we've become successful. Happy people are likely to be more successful. She gave us a formula for happiness, which I must say I'd never heard before. 50% of happiness, she said, comes from our genes. 40% of happiness is related to our activities and relationships. So that's what we can really focus on. And only 10% is related to our financial circumstances. So she also said leaders have a responsibility to promote well-being in their teams and help members tap into their full potential. And then when I asked her what advice would she give her younger self, that was really enlightening. First of all, she said, listen to your intuition. I always teach we have 3 sources of intelligence. We overuse our brains. We don't use our heart and our gut nearly enough. So a great point there. Listen to your intuition. Secondly, she said, most businesses fail. So if you're starting a business, be sure you have a financial buffer to cover the essentials, because things rarely go according to plan when you're starting a new business. The next thing she said was integrate fully into the culture, learn the language and understand the values of whatever community you're working in. And of course, finally, she said, practice self-love, be kind to yourself. So as leaders, we plant seeds, and Janine advocated that those of you listening to this podcast take one idea, take one action arising from what you learned today and watch the ripples spread. Because action is the bridge between our intent and our goals and our results and the outcomes. So remember, success is never accidental.